Eric.
Hi guys, welcome back to the vlog.
Okay. Okay. Now, we're going to have a look at body systems, and then we'll start to look at chemical and things like that. There's a couple of key ideas that need to be covered here. Now, you looked at biology a little bit in year 8. You looked at digestive system, for example. You looked at cells as well. And we're interested in respiratory system, circulatory system, and a couple of others. Digestive system comes into it a little bit. Right, the key learning intentions describe the requirements for living things, and to be able to use the terms cell, tissue, organs, systems, cell system, organ, and that should be organ systems in the human body. So that's what we're looking at, okay? These main things here, what are the requirements for living things? And these, they're not really the main organ systems, but these are the ones that we're going to study with a particular emphasis on the endocrine system and the nervous system. Okay, those will be key. Now, living things, share, comment, and you'll need to take notes on this. You're familiar with Mrs. Gren, so we'll just review that reasonably quickly. All living things have the ability to move, okay? You don't think of trees as moving too much. Obviously they don't wander around, but they can orient their leaves to get more or less sunlight. Flowers will often trap the sun, things like that. So there is movement involved with those systems. They have to have the ability to reproduce. Now, crystals will grow, they'll increase in size, if you like, but they're not obviously living things. And they don't reproduce in this way. So they have to have an ability to reproduce. It's for this reason viruses aren't considered to be alive, because they can't make copies of themselves unless they're inside another cell. Okay? And so viruses aren't classed as being alive for that particular reason. Now, they are sensitive, so they respond to stimuli, and you're conscious of that, obviously. When you're hungry, that's the stimulus, your response is eat, find food in some way, shape or form. And if it's hot or if it's cold, lots and lots of different things. A lot of these responses to stimuli are very much automatic. I mean, when you, if you start walking up a steep hill, you need more oxygen, and you don't consciously start breathing deeper. Your body will do that for you. Your heart will start beating automatically. In fact, most of everything that you do in terms of response is automatic. Otherwise, you wouldn't move anywhere. You'd be not able to do anything. You'd be so busy trying to keep everything going. Grow. Please increase in the number of cells. When things grow, they get more cells. The cells don't get bigger. Okay, so blue whales have more cells than we do. They're not the same number that are bigger. So that doesn't happen. And so yes, you grow, and I've mentioned before that, a fertilised egg is a single cell as the beginning of an embryo, and when you're an adult, you've got 37 trillion cells. So you start on one and you just keep doubling up. Respiration, release energy from food. We did cellular respiration last year as well. And so that's an important process. So the whole digestion process is take something big, break it into smaller and smaller pieces, small enough that they can get into your bloodstream, and then those very small pieces can get into cells and they can be utilised for energy, combined with oxygen and utilised for energy in the form of ATP. Excreting wastes, you obviously have to get rid of wastes. Carbon dioxide is a waste. A lot of wastes will move in your bloodstream because for example, when cells break down and there are parts that can't be reused, that will get passed in your urine. So, and of course there's solid waste as well. Nutrition, all living things need nutrition of some kind. Not all living things have the same types of nutritional needs. Some of them are very exotic indeed, but you do need nutrition. And there's your Mrs. Gren. The other thing that's not mentioned with Mrs. Gren is all living things have DNA, and you need to be conscious of that. There's not a living organism on the planet that doesn't utilise DNA. Okay? Viruses, again, some of them use RNA, but they're not alive, so it doesn't really matter. They're very close to being on the boundary. So So DNA, the oxyribonucleic acid, all living things have it. It's the molecule of inheritance. Now, basic requirements for life are suitable temperature range. Okay, we have a core temperature of 37 degrees. We can live in cold environments towards zero. We need to have some shelter from that. We need to, we can't, grow our fur. We don't have long fur anymore or anything like that. So of course we use clothing to help us do that. And in hotter environments we can go up in temperature as well. Yes?
Isn't like the lowest temperature that we can go to like 0 Kelvin or something?
No, we individually, that's the lowest temperature of the universe. We couldn't do that because that would kill anything actually. At 0 Kelvin, that's effectively a vacuum because there's no gases at that temperature. All liquids, it's all solids. So in an environment that was zero, you're talking about as hostile as the moon in terms of environmental gases and liquid water. Nothing like that exists. So yeah, a suitable temperature range. Organisms, obviously camels are very good in dry environments. They'd be absolutely terrible in the Arctic. And of course emperor penguins would be the reverse situation. Handle the cold really well, would be dreadful in a desert environment. Nutrients. Again, this idea of nutrients. Obviously everything needs to eat. Or as they in the children's book, everybody poops. Okay, everybody eats, everybody poops. Okay. Water is a key requirement. 70% of you is water. Most of a cell is water. And so it is very, very important in its own right. And there's a few additional points here. You also need a stable internal environment, and that's what we talk about with homeostasis. The outside environment, the temperature can move around quite a bit, but your body temperature, what was your human body temperature? Pretty standard temperature?
37.
37, yeah. 37 degrees, give or take, for most people. And so your body will again automatically maintain that because that's the temperature that the proteins in our body work best at. They're most efficient. You start heating them up, they're going to change shape. And if they actually dramatically change shape, they become dysfunctional. And that will kill you. If you cool them down, they won't change shape. But less kinetic energy will mean fewer reactions. And you'll literally start to slow down. And if your core temperature drops into the 20s, that's when it's becoming critical, where you're no longer to maintain reactions at a rate. Your body temperature. If you were to fall asleep in the cold, in the snow, and you'd start to shiver, and then you'd get so cold, you'd stop shivering, and then your core temperature keeps dropping. Now, if you get found and warmed up again, you'll be okay. Frostbite might be an issue, but I think I mentioned before there was a story from the United States where a girl was found solid and overnight in snow, and she's still recovered from that. But she was very unusual. That's why it's an interesting story, because she's the one in a million who just didn't die. Yes.
So if you stop shivering, you still like does that mean like you're on freezing?
Yeah, you've gotten really, really cold at that point, and your body starts to struggle. I read one story about a mountain climber who, when they found him, he was tearing his clothes off because he was so cold that parts of his brain were important for thermoregulation were completely malfunctioning, and his body thought it was hot. Thought he was incredibly hot, and so he was tearing his clothes off, and he was on the point of freezing to death. So, I think they got him off the mountain. It's hard to get people off mountains because, of course, like they're like this, they're very steep. Yes?
So when you're sick, like sometimes you have a low temperature and feel really hot, and have a high temperature and feel really cold. Why is that?
A lot of the time when you're sick, you feel cold, even though you have a temperature when you check with the thermometer, because your body is trying to get you to cover up. Because your body, and remember, what's this? Suitable temperature range. This is true for bacteria and viruses as well. What do you think the temperature range for a bacteria is that infects humans?
Less than 37 degrees?
No.
I mean,
For a bacteria-
37 degrees.
Yeah, for
exactly.
a bacteria that infects humans, it wants to be about 37, our temperature. But when your body rocks up to 40 degrees, that bacteria is really unhappy. Okay, now you're a big animal, 37 trillion cells, so you can maintain a high temperature for quite a while. Some of your cells are going to die, but you'll rebuild yourself, you'll be okay. But for a bacteria, single-celled, all of a sudden it's 37 degrees. This is not the temperature range it really can function at. Then your immune system is also hitting it hard, and it's really getting into trouble. So yeah, when you feel cold, but you put the thermometer in, you're 39, your body is trying to get you to rug up even more, and let's get that body temperature higher and higher. So that around 40, 40 with a baby, you're going to start to freak out as an adult. And you're just about in the car going to the hospital. 41, the hospital's freaking out at that point. So but for a larger, for me, I'll artificially have a fever. If I feel a bit sick, I'll put on 3 tracksuits and sleep under a doona. And that will raise my body temperature. And the virus is like, oh, I didn't like that. Yes?
As a baby, I regularly had 40-degree temperatures.
Yeah, babies get sick often. Now, I better finish this because it's not a long slideshow, but we'll need to get through it. Now, multicellular items, this is a very key idea. You need to highlight this. Okay, maintained through the coordinated function of body systems. Now, if we're talking about coordination, by definition, if things are coordinated, there must be communication going on. Highlight down the bottom here. Coordination requires communication between body systems. Your heart and your lungs work very closely together. But it's true of all your systems, they work very closely together. So if there's communication going on, there has to be some means by which that communication occurs. Yes?
Does that include quantum entanglement?
No.
Oh.
Now, humans, complex multicellular organisms, 37 trillion cells, I mentioned that before, and you've got these different structures. Now, as interesting as that is with our 37 trillion cells, most of your cells in your body are not human. Okay, 10% of your body's, 10% of the cells that make up you are human. The other 90% are bacteria, but they're very small. Okay, so you have about, I think it's 4 kilos for me, about 4 kilos of my body weight, or maybe it's 2 kilos of my body weight is just bacteria in my gut alone. Now, without them, if that was my X-Men power, I can just take those away from you. You die quite rapidly. You can't digest food without them. They release enzymes that are needed for you to digest food. They're very, very important. The bacteria in your gut. So they're really important. Oh, sorry, for some reason there's a transition there, and I hate transitions, but anyway, I'm going to track that down and work out what's going on. Now, cells, smallest basic unit of structure and function in living things. Cells are alive. That's not a surprise, but none of the parts of a cell are alive. If you take out the nucleus, it's not alive. If you take out ribosomes or flagella or anything, they're not alive. But a cell is alive. A cell can make a copy of itself, so it can reproduce, and it responds to its environment and does things. Now, there are about 200 different types of cells in your body. Okay, so you've got a lot of different tissues and all sorts of things going on. You're a multicellular organism, quite complicated. Okay, so you've got sex cells. We're going to concentrate on blood cells when we do immune system. This is the white blood cells. They're really cool. They just eat. Their role in the immune system is to eat anything that isn't you. So they run around feeling things. You, not you, eat. Okay, not you, eat. So guess what? When you get a splinter in your arm, and it's been there a few days, and then you squeeze it and a little bit of pus comes out, that's the white blood cells. Like millions of them have died trying to eat the splinter. Okay, so it's like something the size of, I don't know, Ethiopia arriving here in Bendigo, and we all rush to eat it. We will defend Australia.
And then there's giant field in Australia
so yeah,
by eating it.
it's pretty extreme. Now, next level up. The next level up from cell is tissues. A group of cells that work together. So they're cells of the same type. Now, these are cells of the same type and they are working together. Okay? Then the next level up will be groups of tissues working together in an organ. And organs are the things you're familiar with, like kidney, heart, spleen, brain, whatever it might be. These are all the big things. The skin is a very large, important organ. And then, the very next and highest level we go to, oh, all right, that's not the highest, it's nearly there, is the organ system, okay, which is a group of organs working together, which is what's keeping you alive, okay? Because your kidneys and your heart and your, or rather, I should say, for an organ system, a better example would be your circulatory system. Obviously, your heart is part of that. Your veins and capillaries and arteries are all part of that. Okay, very, very important. Respiratory system is different. Digestive system, quite complicated. You did that last year, and I've got some revision materials for you there. But digestive system, there's a lot of things going on there because you've got your teeth and your tongue, and then the esophagus, and then the stomach, and then it goes into the small intestine, the large intestine. But the pancreas is releasing chemicals as well. The liver is part of this process. A lot of things going on. Okay? Can I change? Shh. Yes. Now, and the largest level, this goes a little bit smaller, and this goes a little bit larger. The largest level is organism. Okay? Which is, an organism can be a single-celled thing. So none of that list is true for a bacteria. But for us, like atom, molecule, cell, tissue, organ system, and then organism. Okay? Now, that should be easy enough and not take too long. Right. Now, several body or organ systems work together in order for our bodies to function properly. Now, you can probably guess what most of these are. Circulatory system over here. Skeletal system. Oh, sorry.
That's the nervous because the
That's
skeletal
the nervous, yes. That's the nervous system there. And we'll cover that. Respiratory. Respiratory is quite simple. It's lungs, but of course the esophagus as well. Okay. Digestive system, skeletal system, and musculatory system, or muscular system. Okay. Now, you need to highlight the red ones because those are the ones we're going to study now. All of them are important, but the ones we are going to study now are the red highlighted ones. So, 6 organ systems studied in Year 9 are the circulatory system. It transports oxygen. Yeah, you're confident with that. Waste in the form of CO2. Nutrients. Now, I didn't highlight this, but I think you should. Highlight that word there. Hormones as being particularly important. Heat goes around the body. All of these things are transported by the circulatory system. So, there's the obvious ones, nutrients and waste, but also hormones are very important, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, the digestive system is breaking down food into smaller molecules, absorbs these nutrients into the body, and excretes solid wastes. So the digestive system has its very important roles as well because it's needed for cellular respiration. Okay, if I want to do cellular respiration, I need oxygen. So that's my circulatory system coming into play, and the digestive system is needed to get the nutrients that I'm going to use for cellular respiration as well. Now, the endocrine system has a little asterisk there because that's one of the 2 we studied in real detail. Controls body functions using chemical messengers. Now, do you remember when I said that if you have coordination, you have to have communication? This is one of the 2 systems responsible for communication. And it releases hormones like adrenaline. So the man in the video who got that terrible scare, his endocrine system, he had a big old dump of adrenaline from his adrenal gland. So any gland is going to go into the endocrine system. So he had adrenaline released into his bloodstream, and his muscles, all of them, will respond to adrenaline, including his heart. And that's why his heart's going to go like a jackhammer, and every muscle in his body is going to tingle, and it's just going to be ready for action. Okay? The immune system, that's important, but that's after the exam. We do disease after the mid-year exam, and it's for fighting disease. We do that for a few weeks. It's interesting. The integumentary system protects the body from invaders by providing a protective layer. Skin. That's it. Okay. Warms the body, cools the body. So again, it has an important role to play. The skin is very important as a layer of defence, but we do that again when we do disease. It's our first layer of defence. Can I change slides?
Yeah.
So I hope everyone highlighted the endocrine system especially, because of course that's one of the ways we have messages get around the body. And the second way comes in here with the nervous system. So muscular system, sure, we've got our movement and whatnot, but the nervous system is very, very important. Okay? Receives incoming information, senses, sends electrical messages to the body on how to react. Okay? So your nervous system is, in Mrs. Gren, if you're responding to stimuli, first you have to detect the stimuli, and your nervous system's really good at that. Okay? Trees don't have a nervous system in that sense, but we do. We have pain receptors, heat receptors, pressure receptors, all sorts of things. Okay? And the nervous system, again, we spend about a week working with that. And again, highlight this. This is responsible for communication. Okay? You all understand that if a person has an accident and breaks their spine at any level, it's very serious, because that interrupts the brain's ability to communicate with whatever body part that might be. It might be the legs, so the person cannot voluntarily move their legs. Okay? Now, reproductive system, okay, produces sex cells, yes. Respiratory system, oxygen into the body, gets rid of carbon dioxide. Again, so respiratory system, digestive system and circulatory system are all needed in order for you to do cellular respiration, to generate energy. They all have to work together. Skeletal system provides support and a little bit of protection. And the urinary system rids the body of waste, cleanses the blood, and maintains salt and water. So don't forget kidneys in that case. Very, very important. Has everyone got those?
Yes.
Been through
Yes.
those? Okay. So I think we're just about there. Yes, we are. I'll give you about, okay, without looking at your notes, close those. See if you can remember those 6 systems and what they do. And I'm just going to round one.
Hang on. So,
Circulatory
Circulatory system,
nervous system.